Joining us now, good friend of the show, founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith, our go-to Muslim here at the show, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Dr. Z, what's shaking?
How you doing, Dennis? It's great to be with you.
All righty, good to talk to you. The headlines seem... I don't know, Dr. Jess. I go to you, and sometimes we kid because I have to shake my head. If I don't laugh, I'll cry. Can't laugh at this one, though. Do cry. The Defense Department issues a report arguing against giving Fort Hood shooting survivors Purple Hearts. Why do we go so far out of our way here to call it workplace violence, to not do that? What in the hell has flipped that we're this contrarian?
Well, it's just unbelievable. It's this Gordian knot that the government got itself into by not declaring that we're fighting an ideology of political Islam or Islamism. And once you can't declare what you're fighting and name it, you end up having to find explanations for everything. It's like the liar that ends up finding excuses one after the other, and this is just one more. The victims who were injured but not killed deserve to be recognized as heroes in this war. But yet the Department of Defense is saying that it would prejudice Hassan's trial when, in fact, Hassan himself was going to plead guilty, but was told that he couldn't plead guilty because it was a death penalty trial. So how it prejudices his trial is just absurd. Not to mention that the officers on the jury are sworn, as Andy McCarthy points out in his column, they're sworn to not be affected by outside influence. So basically, this is the government and the White House, DOD, insulating itself from criticism that we're fighting a global war, just like in the attack at the National Guard outpost in Arkansas. All of these acts are influenced by a global ideology. Hassan was influenced by Imam al-Awlaki, who had declared war in the United States. But once the government does that, then we have to acknowledge that Islamism is playing a role, acknowledge that all of these actors from the Brotherhood in Egypt and on are antagonists, not allies. And even the Daily Kos, Dennis, has said that this is ridiculous. So, sort of odd the knot that the White House has tied itself into.
Well, Doc, you're a former lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. As a military man, speak to. I know the ranks follow up. Listen, the commander in chief, they're honorable men in there, in the ranks, and their duty is to uphold what he says, but. They're only human beings, too, and they're young human beings in almost all cases. Is there, are people in the ranks starting to get a little pissed off at all this sort of neurosis about fighting radical Islam?
I think so. I mean, you would have to, if you're serving in today's armed services, and you see a government that we spent billions and sent hundreds of thousands to Iraq. Now we pulled out, and Iraq has basically fallen to our enemies, helping Iran, helping Assad send arms to him, and sort of lost that war. And Afghanistan, we're pulling out with the Taliban and President Karzai saying, and then you look and you see the White House not really standing behind our heroes and giving them the acknowledgement that they need to fight not only abroad but at home. When one of our own turns against us and commits an act of global terrorism on our soil, this is why Congress is now trying to intervene and say, listen, these people need to be honored. And I think the morale of our troops, and they're suffering from PTSD at rates that are unheard of, because I think they're finding themselves sort of left in this vacuum in no man's land because we don't have a president and an administration that's standing behind naming the enemy and naming what we're fighting.
We're talking to Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and the website for the American Islamic Forum for Democracy is aifdemocracy.org, and Dr. Jasser himself is on Twitter at Dr. Zuhdi, Zuhdi Jasser. Now, Doc, I know you got Syrian heritage, and I think we're around 2 years in on the Syrian Revolution, the anniversary. Can you give us the lay of the land? What has it wrought over there?
Well, Syria is a country that's diverse, has multiple different faiths, from 60% Sunni to 10% Alawite and Druze and others, and it is basically dying. They're headed towards 90,000 dead, with 3 million homes destroyed, and the opposition is fractionating because They basically had very little support, and Iran has continued to stay behind Assad. Putin recently, it's become clear that he's going to stay with Assad until the end because it's the vestiges of that Cold War relationship Russia has had for some time. And the president, our president, has continued to want to lead from far behind, letting the Brits and the UK arm the rebels, letting the CIA sort of help countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Turkey, who are not our allies, arm the rebels. And we're seeing the rebels now be dominated by Islamists who are certainly not our allies, and we sort of have worse and bad over there. And as a Syrian who trying to talk to my family to make sure that they're still alive in Aleppo, we saw chemical weapons used in Aleppo 2 weeks ago, and yet that red line they seem to be dancing around that Obama had declared. And I can tell you, not only because I'm personally emotionally invested in Syria, America has never been weaker in the Middle East, and there is a vacuum there. And I think that it is clearly, we were asking for intervention back 3 months into the revolution, not military boots intervention, but aid to the rebels. They're becoming more and more radicalized. And I think Syria, if we start helping the good guys, at least try to win, at least give them arms, at least try to openly say that they deserve our support, we won't see it go south. Syria is a crossroads, and it is going to implode and bring in a regional conflict if something doesn't happen soon.
Well, as far as I can tell, not only have we not articulated a strategy, we haven't even mumbled a strategy at this point, have we?
No, we haven't. And again, Dennis, all these things are connected. The Brotherhood is failing. We're continuing to give them money in Egypt. In order to articulate a strategy, we have to say that we want to help the secular liberals on the ground, but we do want to help the Islamists. And the president doesn't have either the skills or the wherewithal to articulate this, thread the needle between secular dictators and Islamists. So as a result, he's left doing nothing. And across the region, and he has no doctrine. He really doesn't want to give a doctrine like most presidents that have a doctrine in the Middle East, because he either doesn't believe in a liberty doctrine or is sort of in this post-American anesthesia that feels that we don't need to be doing anything there. And what's going to happen is this Darwinian evolution of the really bad guys in the Middle East. And I think Obama will go down in history as being the president that completely lost the Middle East for those that want to be free.
I'm talking to Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and the website for the American Islamic Forum for Democracy is AIFdemocracy.org. I see where Lego has pulled this Jabba the Hutt toy under claims it's anti-Islamic. Do you think even in the craziest corners of the Islamic world, they're a little stupefied at what ass-kissers we've turned into to their whims? I mean, they must shake their head and go, really? They pulled that toy? That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it never ceases to amaze me, the bizarre gyrations we will make for political correctness. You know, a Turkish Islamist group gets all upset, and Lego pulls it and says that because Jabba was sitting in this building that looked like a mosque, looked like a Turkish mosque, they said they're going to pull it. And they're laughing over there, saying that it's so easy to keep us in the West on the defense that they continue to just sort of push across their own political agenda and by American TV and other things, as Al Jazeera did. And, you know, in Egypt, we see a comedian was put into arrest and interrogated with Bassem Youssef. And finally, some on the left are waking up to the fact that, oh, hold on a second, the Brotherhood is not as free as we thought, and we can't believe that they're doing this. And, you know, there's so many different fronts in this battle that I just wonder when we are finally going to wake up to the fact that we have to say that the Islamists are going to be worse as theocrats than the autocrats that were before them, and finally begin to articulate who the enemy is.
All right, Dr. Jasser, how's life? You good?
Doing well. Kids are wonderful to take care of, and we just celebrated Easter with our Christian friends and Passover with our Jewish friends, and looking forward to Ramadan this summer. So
beautiful. All right, Dr. Jasser. I tell you what, that's the multi-culti thing gets expensive. You got to go into the pocketbook for decorations every 3 weeks, right?
Exactly. But
all right, just pick one. Pick one. Ignore the rest, like me. Dr. Jasser, good to talk to you, baby. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Judy's out. Zuhdi in the skies.